Order, order. Hello and welcome to another episode of Reporters Without Orders. This is the podcast where we discuss what made news, what didn't, and something that absolutely shouldn't have. And today I am joined by two of my colleagues. One is Shivnarayan Rajpurohit from Newslaundry, and the other is Anjana Meenakshi from our partner organization, the News Minute. Hello, Anjana. How are you?
Well, how are you?
I'm also good. So you're joining us from Hyderabad?
I am, yes.
Okay. So we'll start the podcast first by discussing Anjana's story, which is on Isha Foundation. The headline reads, "A storm brews at Isha Foundation, sexual assault allegations and counter charges." And this is the first story from the News Minutes, the spirituality industry series, which is about, the series is about a deep reporting project in which they look at various religious cults in the country, where they get their funds from, their secrets, and why they are attractive among certain age groups and communities. So, hello Anjana, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I suppose this story has you have been reporting on this subject from a very long time, and it has finally come out.
It has been a few months. So we started looking at it mid-October, around October 18th.
Okay.
And that was when the first press conference was held by a couple from Rajpurohit. And they held the press conference in Hyderabad, and we sat and we heard them out. And I think the interesting part of it was at the end of their press conference, there was, they set up a WhatsApp call, and we could hear one more lady speak about how her daughter was assaulted. So we said, all right, we need to follow this through, and then began the series of phone calls to parents back and forth. And this went on and off continually until the end of January. So it was nearly 3 months that I worked on this, yeah.
Oh, okay, 3 months. So there was also recently a video put up by Shyam Singh, who is a digital content creator, and he has also spoken about the sexual harassment allegations against employees of Isha Foundation, and then that video was also pulled down. So Is it the same cases? Your story is about the same cases?
There are overlaps with what Shyam Singh has reported and what I have written about. Of course, I think because the format is one of text, and it did allow me to go into more detail as to things which were said, bits and bobs of conversations which took place between the alligators and either employees of the Isha Foundation or Jaggi Vasudev himself. So that the format in which I operate with gave me that leeway.
Right.
But yes, the cases are more or less, there has been overlap. Barring one major case, there has been an overlap, yeah.
So because the story is behind the paywall, which means that people will have to subscribe to the News Minute to read this story. So we cannot, I think, give away a lot of information. But for those who have not been following this information, could you please share with us what are the sexual harassment allegations about, and who are they, against whom they are?
Sure. So this is primarily not the Isha Foundation per se, and I think that's important to clarify. Okay. This is at the Isha Homeschool, because under the ambit of the Isha Foundation, there are several mini organizations. They have an Isha Institute in McMinnville in Tennessee in the United States, for instance, right? They have 2 schools in Coimbatore. So there are very many Isha subsidiaries, if you will. I looked at the Isha homeschool allegations. So one was the Rajpurohit couple who spoke about how their son was molested by a fellow classmate. The second pertains to a couple who's now based in the United States, an Indian couple, who has alleged that their 7-year-old daughter, when she was enrolled at Isha homeschool a long time ago, was assaulted by her teacher. And there has been a complaint which has been registered with the Coimbatore police in this regard. The third has to do with the foreign volunteer who worked with the Isha homeschool, who said that one of the people employed at Isha homeschool and at the very top of the Isha homeschool, a sannyasi, had molested him, misbehaved with him. So these are the broad allegations. We also look at a couple of other things pertaining to what volunteers have said, brainwashing and the use of things called Devi Yantra, which is one of those objects of articles which Isha sells and promotes to say that this is spiritually healing and important, and how this entirely feeds into how their spirituality business is often told to feel a sense of calm and serene, but at the same time also making a case for the absurd. So I think that is broadly what the story tries to cover.
I mean, these are not recent cases, right?
No, they aren't. All of them aren't recent cases. So a couple of cases date back a little. So it's between ranges from 2014 to 2019 to 2023, right? So one case is a lot older. It's in the early 2000s. So it has been covering across timelines, but it also has to do with the fact that the reason, for instance, why the story took 3 months to do is because we had very many phone calls, and I had immense assistance from Danya Rajendran, my editor, and Ragamalika, who's a News Minute employee who walked me through it and rather handheld me through it. But it took so much time because we had to go back, reconfirm details. And when you have been through what you identify in your own words as a traumatic experience, and then it takes time for you to A, come to terms with it, and B, be able to talk about it intelligibly, which is what has happened, right? So that's exactly why it is across timelines, and then it became a sort of movement because they thought theirs was a soul story, and then they ended up speaking to other people who were involved with the Isha homeschool, and they found out that, okay, yours is not a soul story. This has happened to you. This has also happened to you. So they banded together, so to speak.
Right.
And then it took off from there. Yeah.
Right. And what are the families saying? Why it has taken them a lot of time to come out?
There are different reasons. One is that they said that, for instance, one parent, and it was a very standout line. It was alarming that the way she phrased it, but she was very earnest about the fact that for a long time I had to convince myself into thinking that either the people at the top did not know, or on some level that this was some karmic retribution which my son had to go through, that this was some sort of karma at play, which is why I couldn't come to terms with the fact that what was happening was unfair. Because be it Isha or be it Jaggi Vasudev, both are, the institution and the person are held on such a high pedestal that it's really hard for people to come to terms with the fact and shake off the possibility that there could be some nefarious activities at play, right? So even when it came to their own kith and kin, they struggled with that. That's why it took them time, is the broad answer I can give you without giving away too many details. For that, anybody and everybody has to subscribe to the News Minute and read the story. But yeah, it was just a lot of conversations about how people played into the belief that was sold to them, and then they were not able to snap out of it.
Does claims like this make reporting difficult?
I think
because you're walking this tightrope of, like I believe it's already really tough to, report on sexual assault allegations, and plus this has an added mixture of those spirituality.
No, it's difficult. It's as difficult as in the sense that does it take an emotional toll on you? Sure. But I think it's also more than discussing the difficulty of it. I'm personally have been very lucky to have editors who helped me out, but it was also a very humbling experience too. Because up until then you deal with technical things. You don't have a background in economy. You think you can work with the budget. And you figure it out. You watch a few YouTube videos, you talk to a few people, and you figure it out, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to something like this, you think you'll be able to do it, and then you struggle a little, and then you realize that it's not a piece of cake. That going back, talking to people, making them comfortable enough to speak to you, all of that is a lot more difficult, and they're trusting you with it. Regardless of how inconvenient it is for you, on some level, you do owe them the patience and respect which is necessary. And that's there. But it was an extremely humbling experience. And it's also something you have to treat with a lot of respect, because a lot of people go to Isha, go there to quit smoking, go there to quit drinking, and they come out healed.
Yeah.
It's not like just a god awful area, right? There is a reason the institute has managed to cultivate the kind of following it has. So when you put the two against each other, you realize that there is a lot of need for nuance and balance, and just anger and vitriol doesn't help. But overall, it was an extremely humbling experience.
Right, right. So, coming back to the cases, so these families, had these families reached out to people in Isha Foundation or Isha Home about
Yeah, they have
these?
all of them.
Okay.
They kept trying to communicate, and that was the first thing they did, right? Because they didn't believe that the foundation would be unresponsive. So they had full faith in the foundation even after the fact. So they reached out, and then once they started to see how the foundation responded, is when they realized, okay, this is heading nowhere. And that's when they contacted the media. That's when they went ahead with police complaints or arbitration,
So
what have you. But
they have not received any response from the Isha Foundation. Or in some
they've
cases
received
they
a
have.
response. It was either your classic non-denial denial in some cases, or it had to do more with, we've handled it, it's been taken care of. But the nature of the alleged crimes are such that you can't just say it's been taken care of. There has to be a redressal system. Like, for instance, if there is sexual misconduct, especially involving children, then you have to have a better grievance system in place, more than just say we have handled it internally.
Right.
You can't just handle things like that internally, right? And that's why there's a mechanism at play outside. There's a police, there's an administrative setup available. So once they realize that nothing which in their communique with Isha Homeschool resulted in the kind of outcome they were looking for, justice they were looking for, is when they slowly banded together and said, okay, maybe the media can help us out.
So, Anjana, what's the status of these cases?
One is an arbitration which is taking place between one volunteer and the Isha Foundation. And it's better not to be discussed too much. But in the other two child sexual assault allegations, complaints have been given. One FIR has been filed. The other we still have been waiting on for a while now. So one first information report in one case has been registered, and we will be checking up and following through and seeing what the police does in Coimbatore. But the second case, there hasn't been an FIR registered as of the moment.
Right. And why is that?
Your guess is as good as mine. I wouldn't be able to comment on why the Coimbatore police hasn't gone ahead with it. But there are difficulties at play. There are women's groups who have met with Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin and have submitted a representation. So all that has been happening on the back foot. Tamil media has been reporting on it very, very, very rigorously, but there is no clear-cut answer as to why the Coimbatore police hasn't gone ahead with the second file.
So has there been any internal investigations, internal probe? Because your story does mention that there was an internal probe which highlighted that there were some things which were wrong at Isha Foundation.
So there was
Supreme Court report.
Yeah, so this was after the court's intervention, that the collector had to go and speak to people at the Isha Foundation. And broadly, what they spoke was that the children felt safe, more or less. So that is not something you can critique the Isha homeschool for, because the children were more or less happy and okay, at least as per the administrative version of things. But they didn't have a proper grievance redressal mechanism in place, which you and I would call internal committee, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't have that in place to ensure that if something happens, then what do you do? Which every school should have.
Exactly.
So they didn't have that. It wasn't really a functional body, which is where the problem arises.
Oh, okay. So there were no internal complaint committees as enacted by the
Existed. They
posh.
weren't functional. Existed. That
Okay.
wasn't the problem. They didn't. They weren't functional, right? So they won't have a posh committee because it's a school. But a school is supposed to have some form of redressal of its own. But
Yeah.
they didn't have that. Even as per ICSE guidelines and stuff, they didn't have that in place.
Right. So what has been Isha's response to your queries?
Isha has denied the allegations.
Right.
Isha has had, to their credit, they've engaged completely. They have responded quickly, but they've said that there is either they've stated that the allegations are baseless. One Isha volunteer told us on the condition of anonymity that this was coming from a place of wanting to target the foundation and target Sadhguru, as Jaggi Vasudev is known.
Right.
And that is where it's being built up. But beyond that, it's as things stand, it's they said. So once the police investigation comes through, if and when it does, there will be more for us to talk about. But as of the moment, it's both clans sticking to their own version.
So now this brings us to Shiv's story on a court battle between electronics giants and Narendra Modi government's e-waste policy. So Shiv, what is your story about? I think this is the first time you're reporting on e-waste.
Before I tell you about the court battle which is being fought in Delhi High Court, let me tell you first we need to look at India's waste management policies and rules and acts. So for each kind of waste, whether it's plastic or e-waste or battery, India has separate rules for these kinds of waste. So now let's focus only on e-waste policy in India. So any company which produces e-waste, I mean laptop or smartphones or home appliances, right, that run on electricity, each product has its life cycle. So the government has decided that the life cycle for a laptop is 10 years, for smartphone is 5 years. I'm just giving an example. I may not be correct, but this criteria has been set by the government. So any company which produces these electronics items, they have to ensure that their end-of-life products are recycled, right? So this is their statutory obligation under e-waste management rules. So how they are going to do it? So now let's talk about the rules. E-waste management policy came first was introduced in 2011. Then there were new rules in 2016. There were another set of rules in 2022, and now the latest amendments happened in 2024, last year. So these companies which have gone to Delhi High Court, they have challenged Indian government's new amendments of 2024. Under these amendments, the government has told these producers like LG, Samsung, Havells, Hitachi that if you want to meet your recycling target, what you can do, of course, you can contact a recycler, and the recycler can recycle your e-waste target, and then that's how you can meet your target. So what a recycler can do, recycler can give EPR certificate, that's called Extended Producer Responsibility Certificate, to producer. Producer is any company. So for that, producer has to pay money to recycler because they're getting their targets, they're meeting their targets through recycler, right? So now the producers are saying that now under these amendments, 2024 amendments, the government has set minimum and maximum prices. Suppose if a recycler is recycling 1 kilogram of e-waste, so the government is saying that now recycler needs to get at least this much of price for recycling 1 kilogram of e-waste. Now producers are saying that the government cannot decide how much we have to pay to recycler for getting e-waste recycled in order to meet the target, annual target. So suppose if LG is producing, say, 40,000 tons of e-waste, bringing product in the market. So the government said like your annual target is 10,000 tons, for example. So how they're going to meet this recycling target, that they need to ensure that 10,000 tons of e-waste is recycled. So what they do, they would get it done through recyclers. So recyclers can do on their behalf. It's done through EPR certificate. So if you're a recycler, you can give me EPR certificate. I am producer. So that's how I can meet my statutory obligation or EPR targets.
Right.
Now, the producer is saying that the government cannot decide how much a recycler needs to get from producer. So they are saying it should be between the producer, the company which is bringing waste to the market, and the recycler who is processing the waste. So it should be on the market forces. Like you can't decide that the government can't decide that the recycler should get at least 10 rupees per kilogram to recycle e-waste. So they are saying that it should be on both the parties. Government should not interfere.
Right.
So this is the crux of the problem, which has been challenged by producers, and the companies that have gone to court are. First it was filed by Havells. Havells moved the court November last year. Then Havells was joined by Voltas, Dainkin, Hitachi, Bluestar has also joined, and there was hearing yesterday, which was April 22nd. LG and Samsung have also challenged the government's amendments to the 2022 e-waste management rules and subsequent guidelines published by Central Pollution Control Board. Now, there was hearing yesterday. I also got some affidavits filed by the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change and CPCB also. So these companies asked Indian government, so on what basis you have fixed the minimum and maximum prices for recycling?
Right.
So the Indian government's argument is that if we don't fix prices, then the recycling may not be done in scientific manner. So if you're a recycler, if you're selling me EPR certificate, you're saying that I can do it in 10 rupees per kg. And the government's fear is that if you're doing it in 10 rupees or if you're undervaluing your recycling cost, then it may not be in scientific manner.
Yeah,
right?
Or maybe you're not following the entire process, you are bypassing some things.
So
For cost cutting.
Yeah, for cost cutting. So they are saying that it may lead to environmental pollution. So until 2024, recyclers and producers could decide that at what price the EPR certificate should be sold or should be transacted. So producers are saying that there was no flaw in the previous EPR framework, previous rules. So before the setting up the price, fixing the prices. So if there were no flaws, why did you fix the prices? So your producer saying the CPCP's contention is that to make sure that e-waste is recycled in proper way, that's why you fix prices.
Right.
But these EPR certificates are issued under your own guidance. So EPR certificate itself is a proof that e-waste that a recycler has processed is in environmentally sound, and it has followed all the procedures. So the fixing of price would not ensure that e-waste is recycled properly. So they are saying that because EPR certificates can be transacted only on the CPCB's portal.
Right.
So and recyclers and producers both have to be registered by CPCB. So there is already regulation on that you are registering, you are authenticating whether they have facility or not, right? You're doing everything. But the price cap is out of your purview. And this argument of whether e-waste is recycled properly or not, price cap would not ensure that. EPR certificate which already confirms that it's done properly.
Right. I got it.
So these are the two arguments, basic two arguments. So the fixing of fixing of minimum maximum prices of recycling. It's not only for e-waste; it's also for it's also for batteries.
Right. It's for the entire recycling industry.
Recycling.
Electronics product.
Electronics and batteries. So it's for everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had reported on this, like one story which was like, I think 2 years back, where I had found out, I mean, the e-rickshaws came into market that thinking that, they'll be able to bring down the pollution levels in Delhi. But what I had found was that they ended up polluting the environment more, because the way those the process of recycling those batteries was not followed properly. So
Right.
But those factories are are being operated in Delhi NCR, and anybody can visit those factories and see that like how the recycling is done, and the people who are actually part of recycling those batteries, like they won't be wearing gloves. Those workers won't be wearing gloves, so they will end up
Right.
contaminating their food, and it will contaminate the soil, water around those factory units. So yeah, so what are the experts saying on this issue?
First, let me tell you that India is the third largest producer of e-waste, and if I'm correct, until 2023, 2022-2023, the government informed Parliament that India recycles only 1/3 of its waste, e-waste, and the rest of it is processed by informal sector, of course, which is causing pollution to the environment. As far as experts are concerned, of course, it depends which side you're talking to. So the recycling people from recycling industry are saying that the price fixing would help them in their business, because so if I could give you example of recycling costs for home appliances, electronic items. So there are 7 categories. So the government has set for each category set how much the minimum cost the recycler should get for processing 1 kilogram of e-waste. So there is one category is of laptops and smartphones, IT products. One is of home appliances. So suppose for washing machine, refrigerator, aircon, the government has fixed 22 rupees per kilogram.
Right.
When a producer goes for EPR certificate, Excellent Producer Responsibility Certificate, to get it from a recycler. So for washing machine, right, for home appliances, so a recycler should get at least 22 rupees per kilogram, right? So earlier, before these amendments, recyclers told me that they used to sell EPR certificate for say 10 rupees per kg, 15 rupees per kg, and they are saying that their operational cost is 17 rupees per kilogram for this category I'm talking about, to make viewers understand the pricing. So they are saying if it's 22 rupees, of course, it will bring more money to us, and we can also scale up our business, and it will also ensure that that producers don't go to informal sector, or producers don't go to to those who are recycling in unscientific manner. So the formal sector would get boost,
right,
by this new price rule. Producers' contention, if you speak to experts from the producer side, they would say that it's against the free market rule, and the government should interfere where it's necessary. Government should regulate recycling industry. Government should look, because the EPR certificate itself validates that it is approved by CPCB or State Pollution Control Board.
Right.
Because EPR certificate can't be sold outside that portal. So the government has regulation on EPR certificate and recycling industry. The pricing, fixing the recycling price is not going to solve the matter.
Right.
So they're saying
the
that
EPR certificate
government is through backdoor, government is leaving it on the producer to make sure that the e-waste is recycled properly.
Right.
It's a responsibility of the government to regulate. Right.
So the experts are quite polarized.
Of course, they are polarized. But there are a lot of gray areas in this whole debate. I think which will. I think more and more manufacturers will challenge the government. So far, only 6 manufacturers have challenged the government.
And they're all big ones.
All big ones, yeah.
Okay, so this brings us to the last segment of our podcast, which is about the recommendation segment, where we ask our guests to recommend any podcast, any book, or any article which they have recently read for our audiences. So, what would be your recommendation, Anjana?
Okay, so I'm reading two books as of the moment. One is I'm rereading A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens because I feel like when I first read it when I was a lot younger, I
Yeah.
didn't read it as well as I would have liked to. And the second is Supreme Whispers by Abhinav Chandrachud, which I'm reading with a pen in hand. It discusses various judges and landmark judgments before and after the setting up of the collegium system. And but these are primarily what I'm trying to do because it's just a break from scrolling food reels on Instagram, which I have fallen into the trap of doing very, very much.
So, Shiv, what is your recommendation for the week?
I would recommend a series of stories that we are doing in the wake of what happened at Pahalgam. 25 tourists were killed by terrorists.
Yeah. At the time of recording this
podcast.
At least 25.
Yeah, at least 25. Number could be here and there. Sumedha and Prateek and a few columnists are also writing articles for us. So please keep an eye on Newslaundry's website, and we'll keep publishing stories related to the horrendous attack in Kashmir.
Yeah. And my recommendation is one, I think everybody should read Anjana's story on Isha Foundation, which is A Storm Brews at Isha Foundation, Sexual Assault Allegations and Counter Charges. And because I believe that it has not been easy to bring you stories like this. And the other report is by Isha Mittal from The Caravan, who has written about church and state, the UP police and Sangh's persecutions of Christians in Uttar Pradesh. I think we read a lot about the persecution of Muslims, but this is one of the very few detailed reportage on the persecution of Christians. And I'll also appeal to you to please subscribe to the News Minute and Newslaundry. Please take a joint subscription because we have been bringing you a lot of investigative stories. Like a couple of months back, we broke the story of the Kiran Bedi tapes, and we would like to do more such investigations, but we cannot do it without your support. So here's a QR code which you can scan and become our subscriber. And with that, this podcast is adjourned.
Journalism at Newslaundry is powered by the public, because when the public pays, the public is served. Visit newslaundry.com/subscription and pick a payment plan of your choice. Pay to keep news free and independent. Your future, and indeed the future of democracy, depends on it.